There's a phrase I've heard many times, one that often comes just before or right after someone drops a comment that leaves the room feeling a little colder, and that's the phrase that says, "I'm just being honest," right? Now, on the surface, this sounds noble, like the speaker is courageously refusing to sugarcoat reality. But too often, it's not courage at all, though. It's camouflage. Camouflage for cruelty, camouflage from a desire to hurt without having one's intention to hurt, really. And this matters because honesty at its core is really meant to be a bridge. Honesty is meant to close the gap between what's real on the inside of us and what's visible to others. And it's supposed to bring more understanding and connection and even relief. But when honesty is weaponized, when it's used to dominate or shame or demean, it stops being a bridge, and instead it becomes this wall that has like spikes on the top of it. If you've ever been on the receiving end of a truth that left you feeling humiliated rather than helped, I think you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Maybe it was a boss who gave feedback in front of the whole team, and he was using your mistakes as a way to boost his own authority. Or maybe it was a partner who used brutal honesty in an argument to hit you right where they knew it would sting the most. Maybe it was a friend, someone that you trusted who shared their opinion about your life and the choices you made in your life in a way that made you question whether they'd really even supported you at all in the beginning. Here's the thing though. The problem in these moments isn't honesty itself. It's the lack of integrity and the lack of intimacy that really should accompany that honesty. Integrity asks, am I aligned? Do my words match my values? Am I saying this for the good of the other person or just to unburden myself? Or am I just trying to make a point at their expense? Intimacy asks, do I see the person I'm speaking to as a whole human being? Am I considering how this truth will land with them? Am I willing to carry it with them rather than just dropping it at their feet? Without these two, honesty or integrity and intimacy, honesty is just a sharp object used in unsteady hands. Now, I'm not suggesting that we tiptoe around each other, pretending that everything is fine when it's not. In fact, I would say one of the worst betrayals in human connection is silence. The kind that hides the truth that we should really be sharing. But there's a difference between telling someone a hard truth because you love them and telling them like a hard truth because you want to win or you want them to feel small or maybe you just want to get something off your chest without really considering what the cost was. Young men especially, I want you to hear me at this moment. See, I've heard from so many who've been told that real men tell it like it is, right? And yes, real men do speak truth. But if all you've learned is how to swing truth like a hammer, you're going to end up breaking far more than you build. I think we live in a culture that rewards hot takes, right? Clapbacks and owning people with a well-timed jab. And social media loves these viral moments where someone says what everyone was thinking, right? But that's not the same really as living with integrity, is it? That's not the same as speaking in a way that can actually be received and digested and maybe even transform someone's life in the process. See, when I think about the men that I admire the most, the ones who shaped me, it wasn't their ability to destroy someone in an argument that really stands out. It was more their ability to deliver the truth in a way that made me feel seen and not ashamed. They could tell me something very hard without making me feel worthless. And that's a skill that every man can develop, I think. But only if we're willing to let go of the idea that honest automatically means good. See, weaponized honesty, it often hides behind these plausible deniabilities. I didn't mean to hurt you, they'll say, right? Or I was just being real, or you're too sensitive. And in doing so, it shifts the blame from the speaker to the listener. It tells the wounded person, the problem is actually you, not me. But integrity refuses to play that game. Integrity says, if my words caused harm, I'm going to take responsibility for that, even if my intentions were good. And it's the difference between leaving someone with a wound and staying long enough to help them heal. So how do we start moving from weaponized honesty to an honesty that actually builds? Well, first, I think we really have to recognize what the warning signals look like in ourselves. Before you speak a hard truth, check your motives and ask, am I saying this to prove that I'm right? Or am I saying this to help them grow? Or am I speaking now because it's the right time for them? Or is it just because it's convenient for me? See, if someone said this to me in the way that I'm about to say it, how would it make me feel? See, these questions aren't about diluting the truth. They're really about delivering it in a way that ensures that it can be shared and heard and felt in a good way, because an unheard truth helps no one, right? And that's why it's really worth looking at some of the most common ways that truth gets twisted into a weapon, often without us even realizing it, and how each one can be disarmed before it causes damage. See, when we start to see these patterns, we not only are protecting the people around us, we're also protecting our own character from being shaped by habits that we didn't even mean to form in the first place. I'd say one of the most common ways that truth turns into harm is through the timing that lacks thoughtfulness. You might have the right message, but you might be delivering it at the worst possible moments. When the other person is exhausted, or when they're overwhelmed, or when they're already in the middle of something that's emotionally taxing, right? Even a truth that is meant for their good can feel a lot like ambush if it arrives when they're not able to process it well. Now, think about the times someone has confronted you about something that was important when you were already running on basically fumes. The substance of what they said, it might have been correct, but you couldn't receive it because the delivery didn't really match the capacity in that moment, right? It's like trying to pour water into a cup that's already overflowing. The excess just spills out and just makes a royal mess. The antidote at this moment isn't silence. It's timing your truth so that it has a chance to be heard in the way that you intend it to. And that requires paying attention, being patient, and sometimes holding your tongue until the ground is ready. Integrity asks you to think not only about what you're about to say, but when you're saying it as well. And another form of weaponized truth is truth without relationship. This is when someone drops a judgment or opinion into your life without having any real stake in your growth or in your well-being. And this happens online so often, doesn't it? People deliver these critiques to strangers as if their distance really gives them the license to say whatever they want. But it also happens in real life, when acquaintances or even coworkers comment on something that's deeply personal without having earned the trust to speak into that space. So if you're going to offer someone a truth that might sting, you should be willing to walk with them through the discomfort that follows that truth. See, if you're not invested enough to stay for that part, then you're not really the one who should be delivering that truth, I think. Honesty without relationship often becomes a way of broadcasting one's own superiority rather than actually building connection. And then there's truth that's really a weapon of control, right? The kind that's technically accurate, but it's shared in a way that's designed to manipulate, to keep someone uncertain of themselves or to diminish their confidence. And this can look like highlighting only the negative parts of someone's performance just to keep them dependent on your approval. It can look like repeating a past mistake that they've made every time that you want them to feel guilty enough to comply, right? It can even look like speaking the truth publicly instead of privately, so that embarrassment does the work of pressure for you. And what's dangerous about this form is that it often masquerades as tough love. But real tough love is rooted in another person's best interest. It pushes them towards growth, not submission. Control-based honesty is about protecting your own position instead of their potential. Now, if you've recognized yourself in any of these patterns, listen, that's not a reason for shame, okay? It's an invitation to recalibrate. Every one of us, I think, has moments where our words, even when they're factual, don't really come from the right place. And the point isn't to be perfect. The point is to become aware enough to choose a better way next time, okay? One of the best tools for this is what I call the mirror test. So before you speak a truth that could land like in a hard way, picture yourself on the receiving end of it. Same tone, same words, same setting. Would you feel seen and respected? Or would you feel ambushed, judged, or small? The mirror test isn't about avoiding hard conversations. It's about making sure the person you're speaking to walks away with their dignity intact. When you start measuring your words not only by their accuracy, but also by their impact, something will shift. This is where you stop seeing honesty as a blunt instrument, and you start seeing it as a scalpel, capable of healing if it's used with care, but dangerous if it's used recklessly and carelessly, right? And in this shift, your words will start building bridges instead of burning them down. See, if we want to build relationships that can actually handle the weight of real truth, we really have to start with understanding that honesty is not an excuse to abandon compassion in the first place. Compassion, I would say, is it's not a dilution of truth. It's a delivery system that ensures that the truth can do its intended work. Without it, the message will get lost in the wounds that it leaves behind. A man who speaks with integrity and intimacy understands that truth is not just about the content of his words, but also the conditions of his heart when he's speaking those words. You can feel the difference when someone is telling you something really difficult to hear because they genuinely want the best for you. And their tone carries care and concern, and their body language is open. Even if that truth stings, you can sense that it's coming from a place that is for you and not against you. I've had young men who've told me that they're afraid to be too soft when they're delivering a hard truth, as if compassion will water down their authority. But the opposite is quite true, though. When you speak with compassion, your authority grows because people learn that they can actually trust you. Not just to tell them what's real, but to tell them in a way that doesn't leave them bleeding. And that kind of trust is rare. And when you have it, people will look for your voice. They'll seek it out instead of avoiding it. There's also a discipline here, I think. And that's holding yourself to a higher standard than the culture around you. See, the online world has made weaponized honesty not just normal, but actually celebrated. You're rewarded for for this cutting remark that you gave, or the brutal put down, or the clever truth bomb that leaves no room for any response. But every time you engage in that way, you're reinforcing a habit of harm. And those habits don't stay contained to the comment sections. They actually leak into your friendships and your romantic relationships and your workplace and even your family. And that's why one of the most radical things that you can do in a culture that's addicted to verbal combat is to slow down. Slow down before you fire off that comment, before you unload the critique, before you drop the just being honest line, right? In those moments, pause. Consider the other person's humanity. Consider your own long-term impacts. Will this truth help them step into something better? Or will it just cement them in their defenses? This doesn't mean that you're avoiding saying the hard things. Sometimes I think the most compassionate thing that we can do is to speak a truth that we know is going to cause discomfort. But discomfort is different from damage. Discomfort invites reflection and growth. And damage just shuts people down. And here's where intimacy comes back in. Intimacy doesn't mean overexposure. Intimacy means mutual trust and a willingness to be seen. When you're honest in a way that preserves intimacy, well, you're also being vulnerable as well. You're not just lobbing a truth from a safe distance. You're actually standing close enough to absorb some of the weight of that truth with the other person. You're saying, I care enough about you to stay in this conversation, even if it's uncomfortable for me. And this is where real transformation begins to happen. It's not the mic drop moments where you walk away victorious. It's in the patient and sometimes awkward and often challenging exchanges where truth is met with openness because it was offered with respect. And those moments don't often go viral. They don't get the applause, but they do build something that's far more valuable, and it builds this trust that lasts. So if you've been hurt by weaponized honesty in past times, I'm sure it can make you hesitate to speak your own truth at all, right? You don't want to become what wounded you in the first place. And that hesitation is quite understandable, but it's also a reminder of how powerful our words can be. So instead of silencing yourself, let that experience refine you. Let it make you the kind of person who can deliver truth without a hidden blade in there. When you begin to master that balance, it's then that you start to see the ripple effect in essence. See, people will not only receive your truth better, but they'll also begin to mirror it back to you. And honesty that's given with care, it tends to inspire honesty returned with care as well. It changes the temperatures in your relationships, and it replaces suspicion with safety and competition with collaboration. I think one of the deepest rewards of learning to tell the truth with both integrity and intimacy is that it transforms you as much as it also transforms the people around you. Every time that you choose delivery over domination, you're reinforcing your own identity as someone whose words can actually be trusted. And that's not a small thing, especially in a world where trust is a rare currency. It's here that you begin to notice that you no longer feel the same impulses to win conversations. Winning actually becomes irrelevant when your true aim is connection. And you stop rehearsing these cutting comebacks inside of your head, because now you're more interested in the bridge than in the blow. And this doesn't make you weak. It makes you dangerous in the best of ways. Dangerous to pride, dangerous to defensiveness, dangerous to the lies that live comfortably in the absence of compassionate truth. And it's also how you build a reputation that opens doors. See, people remember how you made them feel when you told them the truth. If your honesty left them feeling respected and supported, they'll happily come back, right? They'll trust you with their harder truths. They'll listen when you speak, not because they fear you, but because they see and they believe that you see them. And for young men especially, this is an invitation to step into a kind of strength that doesn't always get celebrated in the spaces that you might be used to. It's not the strength of having the last word. This is the strength of building words that actually last. It's the kind of words that someone will replay in their head weeks later and realize that conversation really changed me. And the reality is, truth will always have power to harm or to heal. You see, it's neutral until it's in your hands. What you do with it says everything about the kind of person you're becoming. And if you're serious about living with integrity and intimacy, well, then you can't afford to treat honesty like a blunt force weapon, right? You have to treat it like a tool for building. Not just building your argument, but building people up as well. So my dear listener, the next time you find yourself about to say, "I'm just being honest," pause. And then ask yourself, am I also being kind? Am I being careful with the trust that this person has placed in me? Am I willing to stick around after I speak to help carry the weight of what I've said? Because when you start answering yes to those questions, your honesty actually becomes something entirely different. Your honesty stops being this shield that you hide behind or a sword that you're swinging. And instead it becomes a gift. One that, even when it's hard, will leave the person on the other side better because it helped them grow. See, that's the kind of truth that doesn't just change conversations. That's the kind of truth that changes lives. And if enough of us would start wielding honesty in this way, I think we could shift a whole culture to help it understand what it's really meant to feel and to be experienced like. I hope this has served you well. I'm getting cold. I'm gonna go back to the bus where it's warmer. I'll see you in the next episode. Drop me your comments about how this landed for you. Appreciate you guys.